a brief video we're going to share, and then we're going to go into our little presentation and have some Q&A if you want to stick around. Okay.
So we are going to share our screen and have you guys watch this. It's 2-minute video, not the Swedish Chef. We promise. But we're going to have you watch this 2-minute video, and then we will be back with you to do our talk.
All right, so here we go. This should work. Oldie but a goodie.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It's not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See, you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
Okay, we got to do a quick. All right, we're going to do a quick change here to make ourselves get onto their better computer. And we are going to go ahead and start talking about communication, because in this Corona environment, with all of us in the way that we're, when we are with our spouses a little bit more than normal, that can cause some conflict, as you can imagine. And believe it or not, yes, we are, I guess you would call us professional Catholics, but we ourselves have, you know, we've definitely had our share of conflict as well during this time, because there's a lot of stress.
And so, the topic for tonight, if you had the handout, that's great. The subject of the email was handout, just trying to keep it simple. If you have that, great. If not, you can look at it later. But the topic is communication in marriage. If everybody...
Do you mind if I put it to speaker? Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And you know, I think we all are familiar with the old adage, and there's a book that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And although you may have never read the book,
maybe we're dating ourselves. It's a little older.
but the reality is that I believe the premise is there's some truth and there's a faulty premise to this, because we were both, men and women, were created by God. We were created in His image and likeness, and actually on the same planet, for what it's worth. But we were created on purpose differently. We were made to be complementary. And I think that we have to recognize the differences and the uniqueness that we each bring into our marriage, and recognize there's good and bad, and there's challenges, and there's blessings and curses, if you will, with that. And so we want to talk about, if you've listened to our podcast or maybe been in an event before, we've probably talked about this, where
it's 2 types of communication.
Right. Two different types of communication. There's many types, right? But we're going to talk about reductive and expansive, right? Reductive, you can figure this out pretty quickly, but often a reductive is listening to the facts. It's boiling things down to, what did you really say? What was just the facts, ma'am? Getting to a place where I am talking so as to be thinking about a solution. Here's a problem, and I'm looking at what's the solution for this.
Take the nail out of your head.
Right.
You know.
The nail in the video could be a myriad of things, right?
Right.
It could be anything that we complain about in our lives that oftentimes is under our control, but we still are dealing with this problem, this situation, this conflict, whatever it is. And this could be things like, you want to lose some weight, or your home is disorganized, your life is feeling out of joint or lacking peace,
Relationship conflict.
whatever it might be, right? And reductive communication or listening is often in general, masculine. Now, that doesn't mean every man is primarily a reductive communicator, or that is always the way that men communicate.
Right.
But it does tend to be that way. And again, when we've said this before, but when you make generalizations, there's always exceptions to the rule, and there's never anybody that's specific, right?
Right.
But it's helpful for us to really look at these two different types, and Alicia will share a little bit more about reductive as well as share on expansive. But everybody needs to recognize that there are two very unique ways we approach.
Right. And the reason that we started with that video about the nail is because it's such a funny but very succinct way of showing reductive listening or reductive communication, right? And how it can be really good sometimes and very necessary. But also it can be...
Because sometimes your wife does have a nail in her head. I mean...
Well, I was thinking about it too, from a woman's perspective. Sometimes wives can practice that reductive communication as well. For example, husband complains about finances or about his job, and she says, well, why don't you just go in and ask for a raise? Just getting right to the solution instead of listening to her husband and realizing where the husband's thinking, well, you don't understand. There is like my relationship with my boss, my goals right now, office politics. He has a bigger context for that. But a wife can be like, well, just do this right now.
It seems so simple.
It seems so simple, exactly. And now there is certainly a good aspect to this. So if you look at like...
We're using the example of the salary, right? Of the pay.
Yeah. So sometimes that kind of solution-driven, for example, of the pay, like if you look at studies have shown married men make more money than single men. And one of those reasons could be they are more responsible. They have, a wife, they have children, all of that. But it also could be that they have a wife behind them going, go ahead, you can do this, And so in the bad way, it can be she's nagging, and she's saying, just do this. But there's also a good aspect of that, because she can also be saying, I really believe in you. I really think that, I think that this is a solution. So it can go either way. It's not like a good, bad thing. It depends on the situation. So that's reductive listening. So then let's talk about expansive listening, which is another aspect of communication, listening communication. Type. Yeah, another type. So expansive listening is taking in the context. What is behind the complaints? What's behind the problem? It's putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. It's sensing their feelings by interpreting, facial cues, body language, just kind of knowing what's going on, asking questions, listen to the tone of voice, taking into like the entire setting. And it's really important. That expansive listening is a very important element in practicing empathy. Okay, like in the video when he finally said, that sounds really hard, and that's really what she wanted, right? She just wanted that empathy. So when you are listening or communicating expansively, you are more able to practice empathy because you're really walking with the other person, not trying to fix them, but allowing them that freedom to choose the solution that they think is appropriate. Or maybe there's no solution at all. Maybe they just really want to be listened to.
So as we often do, I want to share a little story, being vulnerable with you about this type of communication. And so
just us, this is just between us and our 200 closest friends.
Yeah.
Right?
This is just keep this between us, okay? So there was about 10 years ago, Alicia helped start with some other folks, a homeschooling co-op here in town, which then later ended up birthing a Montessori school. And it's really been awesome. And but this was a volunteer effort on Alicia's part to
I
help
got
do this.
reimbursed here and there.
Yeah. But essentially volunteer. And but you had other people helping you, but a lot of the burden
Yeah.
for some of the management oversight, the finances, and all these different things
Right.
for the operations, running this small little kind of a little business enterprise was on your shoulders. And it was getting to a point a couple years ago, maybe a little over 2 years ago, was getting to a point where it was dragging you down. It was causing more stress. It was,
I was coming to you.
yeah, you're constantly, I would say constantly, but you were coming to me often with challenges, problems, trying to figure, and as I saw this situation, boom, light bulb went on, and I was using my reductive, communication, and I was listening to you and saying, hey, I got your solution here. Don't worry, I got this. And I said, you need to step down, step back, move
Right.
away from the leadership, because it's burning you out. It's harming your peace, and it's not good. And my interest in this wasn't negative. It was simply to protect my wife. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we always start with that as our impetus, right? We want to, at least for me, I wanted to protect my wife. She was giving herself away, and she almost couldn't say no. At least that's the way I felt, right?
Right.
And but as I continued, as she kept coming back,
But I
with
did not
these-
agree with this solution of
Right.
stepping down.
Right.
Right.
And so as I continued to go to, hey, I got your solution right here, sister. I moved from being the problem solver to being an adversary with her. And because there were solutions she wasn't looking for, maybe not right then or for the right time.
Mhm.
She was in disagreement with me, right? And that put us in a bad place, because essentially by me constantly bringing up the solution to her problem, I was actually creating another problem. And it wasn't until, it took me a while, probably longer than she would have liked, but it took me a while to get to the place where I realized something that we preach about, that it's better to be wrong together than right alone. We've said this before. It's one of those maxims that I probably need to put it up in my office here. It's better to be wrong together than right alone. Again, we're not talking about morality. We're talking about a relationship. We're talking about things that are within our prudential realm, if you will. We were both digging in. We were both kind of choosing our sides. And it almost was as if we couldn't even talk about this subject without ending up in an argument. I just remember it very vividly.
Right.
And I was choosing to be right instead of being united with my wife. And it wasn't until I kind of got,
He came over to the dark side.
I slipped over and said, okay, you know what? I guess I'd rather be wrong with you, because you know what? I think you're choosing the wrong path. But I'd
You
rather,
didn't say that, though.
I didn't. But I said, okay, you know what? I am going to engage the problem in a different way.
Right.
Instead of following what my default, what my gut was telling me, if you will, I made a choice. I died to myself, and I said, let me step out of my comfort zone. And I said, how can I help you?
Right.
Instead of me giving her a solution, I said, how can I help? And I ended up volunteering, taking over the books and some of the finances, which relieved some of the burden and the weight from her.
Right.
And then we moved to the place where we were now partners in a problem that was in front of us, or a challenge that was in front of us. And then the conversation shifted. I was no longer trying to solve her problems, but I was working with her, because she was obviously very committed and felt very kind of called into this, right? And so I chose to just simply listen to her. So when she brought a problem, I was an advocate for her now. I was no longer the adversary. And in some ways, this was preparing us for our work here at the Messy Family Project, because it was kind of somewhat of a professional scene where we were working together in concert. Anyway, but that was it was a cycle for me, of getting over first just wanting to give you the solution to getting to that place.
You know what? I think that when you change the Facebook Live ended. So if you can do it while I'm talking. Okay. So anyway, sorry, we're just going to start our Facebook Live again, because I think when we changed hosts, it didn't work. But I need you to go back to my notes. So this really helped me. This is my perspective. So it wasn't wrong. And so I just want to emphasize this. It wasn't wrong for Mike to suggest me stepping down. That was really okay for him to say that. The problem was, like he said, when we were both kind of kept digging in, and I knew that he didn't see the whole picture. He didn't see everything that I saw and so stepping down wasn't something that I was ready to hear, and it really wasn't what I was looking for. So through getting involved and coming over and helping me, I knew he could get a better picture of what I was doing and why. And I knew that he could see then from my perspective even more. And so this kind of goes to the next point that's on your sheet there, is that really good listening is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And expansive listening is the key to that. So if you are always giving solutions, if you are always trying to fix the other person, then you may not really be listening. You may not really be stopping and, like in a movie, being ready to really hear them. So when Mike stopped trying to fix the problem and really give a better solution when it was needed, then I was ready to hear it later on. Because, and it's just like our next point after that, is he needed to give me freedom. He needed to give me freedom. So when when the time came for me to step down, so I stepped down this past summer from really all of my responsibilities there. I'm still on the board, but I stepped down. It was my decision. It was my decision to step down, and that self-determination is really important, because that's really what people need. That's what they're looking for. That's what they want. And we all need freedom, because I certainly am not going to do something just because he tells me to do it, and I don't think I'm the only person who feels that way. But at the same time, our spouses should be our greatest advisors,
right?
And the person that we trust in time of trouble. And so when Mike...
But that trust is built, right? I mean, that trust
Yes.
is built through experience, by listening, by understanding, by walking with.
And really believing that he understood. And so because he was walking with me, when I did step down, he didn't have the attitude of, well, I told you to do this 2 years ago, right? He really felt, but he really felt my pain. He felt my pain in letting go of this. And it was the right time. It was the right time. So when Mike gave that solution, it was the right time, and I was ready to hear it, because I felt heard, and I felt like he really saw from my perspective through walking with me. And that was a while. That was like, months and months, if not over a year of helping and learning to listen to each other.
Right. And in the end, it ended up with unity. Right. And so what we are proposing is that your way of listening, your masculinity, your femininity, your unique way that you communicate was ordained and is a power. And that power needs to be used for good. You need to balance kind of your default or your instinct in communication, because we all have this need to communicate, right? But we need to do it in love, and do it all in the name of love, to quote U2, but this power is a dance that we have in our marriage. It's a complementarity, because
Right.
It is not like, it would be wrong for us to say that, the feminine way or the expansive way is better than the reductive or masculine way. And again, those are generalities, but it would be wrong for us to say it, because the beauty is that we're both needed. We don't want, Alicia doesn't want me to have a feminine brain and heart and mind and actions.
Right.
And I don't want her to become masculine, but she does reductive sometimes and expansive sometimes. And but together we're using it so as to be, as part of this dance, right? So we want to have, so this is the final point. We don't want to have the power. We don't have this for our own sake, but for the good of the other. I mean, this is about the gift of self. This is about how we lay our lives down. This is our vocation, is that we work together to come up with something better than we would have on our own.
Right.
And so just...
Well, I just wanted to say that and really, truth be told, my communication style is definitely, I think, more reductive. I'm more like, get to the solution, here's the answer. And I have really learned from Mike, who's actually more of an expansive listener, naturally, but we both, and we, kind of switch back and forth depending on the situation, like in that example that I just gave. And I think that that's a good thing, to know when it's appropriate and when it's not.
Right. So some of the pitfalls, right? So let's look at both of those styles. Again, both men and women can have those styles and use them at different times. But reductive communication pitfalls. Okay. So from the masculine perspective, John Eldridge, I don't know if you guys are listening or have read any of his stuff.
It's great stuff.
But Wild at Heart, a lot of good truth in there. But there can be an extreme that we could get to where men have a desire to rescue. And I think there is something very natural and very good about that.
Right.
But men, your wife is not always the damsel in distress in need of your rescuing. My wife surely is not, right? But because it's not good for us to see her simply as weak or irrational or needy. That's not the rescuing that our wives want. Yes, there is something powerful and beautiful about having a beauty that we want to protect, that we want to rescue. But knowing that they are a full partner with us, not a
I'm not a child.
Yeah, you're not a child to be taken care of.
That's right.
And so we have to ask the question, why are we rescuing her?
Right.
You know, is it out of some false notion of us trying to be the hero or machismo? Are we doing it out of love for her? And again, on the reductive pitfall for women, again, these are very easy to see. You know, they often say that the sometimes the big cross or challenge or struggle for men is sometimes passivity, letting things happen and not stepping up and doing things. Where the challenge for women oftentimes can be the desire to control.
Right.
And this, again, when you think about the woman's reductive, it could be the desire for a good desire for men to step up. And, you know, there's nothing like a woman who admires me, who respects me, who has a high vision for me, that would make me rise to the occasion. But women can't nag your husband into being the leader or doing the right things, or that nagging, that criticizing will destroy a relationship. So are we doing this, again, primarily thinking of women, but it could be men too. Are we doing this out of control, a desire for control, or doing this out of love for him because it looks different? Is he your puppet? Or are you going to give him freedom and the opportunity to step up in the way that you might want, but giving him that respect and admiration rather than
without telling him what to do?
Yeah, again, and that's where the mention of, you know, getting to the solution sometimes in a reductive part can come in.
Right.
So what you do there.
So then expansive communication can also have some pitfalls. Of course, it is very important to express your emotions and, you know, and all of that. But in that desire to be heard, it's really important to make sure you're not using your spouse as an emotional dumping ground, right? For everything that you're feeling. Yes, it's good to walk with somebody, but I also know that sometimes we have had conversations that I actually have had to go to confession about, where not because we were fighting, but I would be so angry about something. I would just keep emoting and kind of going on and on and on. And like, there is a lack of virtue there.
It's a wallowing in your emotions.
Exactly. Like there's definitely a lack of virtue there. So we have to be, or even to be tempted to despair, you know, and just kind of go on about your sadness. So I think that there's something about expansive listening that's important to understand where somebody is, but not allowing them to, not allowing, but not just simply leaving them there to wallow in their emotion, but saying, okay, I hear where you're going from. Let's walk together out of this.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I'm the conclusion. Okay. So we're going to get into our question answer period now. So if you guys open up your chat, anything that you send us will only be seen by us, just so you know. And yeah, I think that all of the questions are just coming to us. So you have to go to open up our chat because ours isn't open. Perfect. Yes, somebody said Men and Women Are from Eden by Mary Healy. Yeah, that's a great talk. Excellent. So if you guys, can just chat us any questions you have about the different kinds of listening. And like I said, we'll just hear it. And we're not going in, when we've done this before, we've kind of allowed people to ask the questions, but I just think there's so many of you, it'd be a little bit hard, and we're going to keep going. I know we said that we would only go till 10. And of course, if somebody has to go, you're more than welcome. I mean, I wouldn't even know if you left, honestly, because there's so many people, but I think that we're going to go until like 10:15. Let's go to 10:15. Is that okay with you?
As long as you guys don't fall asleep and
Okay.
have too much alcohol or too much chocolate. It's up to you. So
You got your alcohol, you got your chocolate, you're good.
So so if you want to start throwing out some questions,
Right.
all right, Phil and Mindy, thank you. We'll take a look at this. Once you read,
Yes. So this is so good. And we love fielding questions from people. This is just and we don't always have all the answers, of course.
no, but we'll make them up. So
That's right. We'll just make stuff up. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So as you're listening, you guys can just keep throwing those questions because we can scroll up and down here. So first question, how does one best help others grow in communication as one is in ministry? So this is from a deacon. God bless you for your service. Thank you so much. I've seen this come up and I don't have a lot of answers on top of my mind. How do you help the other person to grow in certain types of communication? So that's a really good question.
yeah, I mean, the only way, first reaction is the only way to learn to grow in communication. It's not about communication in general. It's about this person. And so it's just about doing it. And I think,
Like if you're married to a husband who is a very reductive listener and has a really hard time being an expansive listener, what do you do?
yeah, I think you start with small things. Start with things that you can agree on that really draw both parties in, something that you really do want to talk about. A simple example is talking about your dreams and aspirations for the future, right? It doesn't have to be a conflict. Don't start with something that's a hot button issue, but start with learning more investment in just the communication styles that you have. And so I want
On a easy topic.
on a very easy topic, right?
Very
And
good.
build from that foundation to go out, and then make them listen to a podcast or two.
I was going to say, that's why we're here, Deacon. Have them listen to our podcast. No, that's a little bit too easy. But really, the one thing I was thinking about is the first person that you can change is yourself. So I think that when you have a spouse who you're like, oh gosh, I wish that there would be a better listener in this area or that area. You know what? You can't really change that. But what you can do is you can look at yourself and say, well, hey, am I being that expansive listener? Am I being a reductive listener? How am I doing? And then being that example, because that's the first person you can change. But I didn't think of this starting.
Starting small, but again, going to the
and asking them, hey, can we just listen? Can you just listen to me? Can we just talk about this?
And communication is always two ways, right? So
Right.
you becoming a more effective listener and contributor, and you can learn more effective ways of drawing that person out. Something that
So I think very often we look at our spouse and we say they're the problem in the relationship, and that's really not fair. Because
communication is, again, both sides. And so I know for times when Alicia's helped me see and articulate more, even the feelings that I had that was frustrating for her, right? And so you helped draw out and help me think through, not as trying to win the argument or say that what I couldn't put words to it. I had this
that's
issue,
a physical thing in men's brain. The emotional part of their brain and the verbal part of their brain are not hardwired together as they are in female brains. They're just not.
And I didn't want to go there, but you helped me articulate it so that I actually had more control and better effective ways of communicating in the future.
Yes.
So that's a short answer.
No, I think
That's good.
Well, see, we don't have any feedback from you, so we're like, yeah, I think that was good. I think we're doing great. Okay, so next question. How do you know as the husband, this is so great, how do you know as the husband when to stop listening and when to actually give a helpful suggestion to your wife? Thanks. This is so
I'm not
great.
answering this one.
No, okay.
So when should I give a suggestion?
Can
I? Oh, was that a suggestion?
See, we're growing in our relationship right here, right now, people. No, I was thinking about this before when we were kind of planning this. We were having that argument before. No, just kidding. I think that sometimes it's good to say, you do this. You say, can I give you a suggestion? Like, is there, and even honestly, I think I was reading a book or an article where a husband would say, can I give you a suggestion, or would you prefer that I just listen right now?
It's asking permission to make that suggestion.
You know what? This does
Permission
not
to
have
play.
to be, this doesn't have to be a big hide and seek thing with you
Permission
and your
to
wife.
speak freely,
Yes,
sir.
exactly. So you need to, I think it's good if you have these conversations about your types of communication and you can talk about just freely, hey, this is what's difficult for me when you're trying to fix me, or when whatever, just so you can talk about that in a non-confrontative situation. And so then your husband, as a husband, you can ask. You're allowed to ask. Would you like me to just listen right now, or can I help you solve this problem? But the thing is, if she says, I just need you to listen, you need to just listen,
Well,
which is hard, but it's hard for me, believe me, because
Yeah.
I'm like the solution person.
And if you look at it from the standpoint that it always has to be that permission or a suggestion, and it can't be, this is my demand, right? I mean, again, if you're
Or
making,
saying, this
if
is
you're
what you
making
need
it,
to do.
if you're making it as a suggestion, a proposal, or a possibility, you have to really put it in that tense when you put it out there, as opposed to, well, this is the right way to do it. This is the only way to do it. Think about that. Check yourself. Make sure you have some humility as you propose that.
Do you know what? I literally just remembered an argument we did have where you were sharing something that you were frustrated about, and I started giving you a solution, and you said to me, I really don't want a solution right now. Like, you actually said that. And I was like, okay, I'll shut up. But I think it's good either way, to be able to be honest with what we're looking for.
And Jeff and Melissa, thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, we were part of Engage Encounter in our marriage prep. Marriage Encounter does a lot of this. So if you're looking for marriage encounters all over the world, and it's a great little weekend away, and they do talk about new ways of communicating, and they have the dialogues and the writing, and they really help people to kind of walk through a process of deepening their skills.
I thought you were going to say this suggestion. Danielle suggested a good question to ask. Are you looking for a shoulder or a solution? That's good. That's a really good.
Looking for a shoulder? Or
yes,
a solution?
yes. And that can some kind of diffuse things. Okay, this I actually think is a very good, so many good questions, guys. Which one? This one, when you disagree, who gets the win? Can you read these? Mike doesn't have his glasses on, so I don't know if you can see this.
You get to choose.
Okay.
Spin the wheel.
Okay. So how can you help push someone to grow in taking more responsibility without nagging them to do so?
We won't mention anybody's name who asked this question. Okay? All right. So
how can you push someone to grow in taking more responsibility?
No.
Without nagging them to do so.
Yeah. So
if you have a husband who's maybe not leading in a certain area.
Again, when you say nagging, I'm making the assumption we're talking about a wife who wants her husband to do something, right?
Your wife, sorry.
And I have something we said, and we I know because you're asking the question, is one, how can you get them to do, hopefully it's not what you want or what you think is the solution. It's them to step up and to do what is their way, right? Because you don't want your own path, your own specific solution, because that's not right. That's not good. That is not respectful of the individual. But you do want them to step up into more leadership, and you have an idea of what that looks like, but it will look different for them versus what you would do. So at first is just recognizing that you got to make sure that you are seeking their good and the good of your family as the end, rather than your specific way of what that might look like. And I'll just use the example of prayer. I mean, again, there's people probably from more than just the Catholic faith here, but as Catholic Christians, it'd be great if the dad was leading spiritually in the home. And how do you get your husband to take a more kind of spiritual role or spiritual leadership in the home? And we get that question via email and a lot. So the challenge is that if you nag him, he won't do it. But if you don't say anything, you're like, he wouldn't do it. Nothing's happening. It's just all there. And there is this challenge that we mentioned before, the idea of women have this tendency towards control and men towards passivity. I think, again, this is the reason we are complementary, is that it's learning how to take both of those and build something united, which is really focused more towards
so how do you
Christian
get
maturity.
a man to lead?
You have to create an environment. Are Maria, you got an answer? Is that what you're saying? No. But I think what you need to do is two things. One, you need to have a real honest conversation about your desire, and so that there is a clear picture of why this matters, because I don't know if, again, whatever the issue is, why this issue matters to you as a wife. Again, I'm just going to use the example of the spiritual life in your home. Make a clear understanding for your husband to understand why it's important that he takes this on. And you say, I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not your boss. I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but I'm your partner. And this is the place where I really need you to step up and do this. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not supposed to be in that role or whatever.
Well, what I was thinking is that you have to be ready that if you ask your husband to lead prayer in the home and he says, okay, I'm going to lead prayer. Come on, guys, let's all get together. We're going to say, Hail Mary, amen. We're good. You can't be like, well, wait a minute. That's not what I meant. This is what you're supposed to do. You know, if he's going to lead, you need to let him lead. You need to let him lead. And it's not going to look like the way that you would have led. And that's okay. That's okay. But whatever he does, you need to give him that freedom and support him in his choices if you want him to lead. Because you know what? As a leader, one of those frustrating things, if someone says, go ahead, you lead this, and then they're there second guessing me all the time, you know, then I'm gonna be like, hey, forget it. I'm not doing this. You know, I think that would be anybody's reaction. So we have to be really careful when we want our husbands to lead. We need to support them in the way that they are doing it.
But we can also, again, it's about deepening. It's all layers, right? Where are you at in your trust, in their trust of you, and how strong is your bond? Because maybe you can say, hey, I know you had a desire for this, but I'm not sure what's happening. Where's the gap, and how can I help you? I mean, that's probably the last part in a way, is saying, this is our desire, hopefully together. What's your unified position? Because then you can also reset your expectations. Because if he's on totally opposite page, well, then you've got a different, set of.
Well, one thing I was thinking
issues.
too, before we go into the next question, is just that I think a great way to ask your husband, or ask anybody, husband or wife, to step up in a certain area is to say, could I ask you for your help on something? And if they say, most spouses will say, sure, well, what are you looking for? And they say, would you mind leading prayer tonight? Would you mind taking out the trash? Would you mind whatever? Could you do this? And going to them.
And really making it a question.
Making it a question. And they may say, I don't have time to do that for blah, 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 whatever. And then accept that. But I think that asking is a way of showing respect to the other person. So, okay. So next question. This is also a very good question. Okay. Okay. This is tricky. I don't know if I have a good answer, but.
Well, then don't ask it.
When you disagree, who gets to win? The man, because he's the head of the family, ? So if you really disagree with something, and now I think
how many people have that are interested in an answer on this one? Thumbs up, hands, anybody? I see Albert's looking for an answer. Stephanie doesn't want the answer. Okay. How many men want the answer to this question? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to end.
I'm going
to put it on mute right now. And no, I really do. I think that there is a false notion of I believe in men having a unique role as the leader in a Christian home, right? And I don't believe that there is there are unique places that men and women have in the home. But if we looked at it and said, okay, the man is the king of the house, or that he's the president and she's the vice president, that's not what we're talking about.
I ain't nobody's vice president. No, I'm just kidding.
because the reality is that that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
But when the buck stops,
roles.
right? It's like what we have found. And again, I'm not saying this is de facto for every Christian household, right? But like if you look at this and say the vast majority of issues, we just need to be united. And she's going to have greater insight on certain areas, and I'm going to have greater insight on certain areas.
And we have different perspectives.
Different perspectives. But hopefully we come to a better unity. When we don't, when we're on hopefully not, if we're on opposite pages, then we got to get on the same page.
Right. Change the conversation until you find common ground on something, and you have to build from there.
And there are certain topics where and you can correct me because you will. But I think there are certain topics that we look at and say, okay, you have a greater wisdom, insight, and kind of authority, let's say within the household. Again, we both
regarding like issues with the children, like sometimes I'll have
education, like I want to be in on that, but I really defer to you on some of that.
If I say, I think we should switch this child's school, I think that this child, needs to, whatever teacher. Michael said,
and so she has authority and power and probably more weight of responsibility in those areas. But but we always try to talk about it. But then like in finances, I try to make sure that we're always making united decisions. But when we come to a place, I've found, I think, that most of the times, heavily, some of the times, Alicia will say, okay, well, I'll defer to you on how we're dealing with that.
Because you know what I think it is that I can't worry about everything. He can't worry about everything. You know, like I can't worry about what's happening with all of the kids, making sure the house is running, and also worry about our retirement, our, you know, health insurance, I can't worry about everything. I only have so many things that I can be in charge of. And so there has to be some kind of division of labor within the house,
Right.
because somebody has to take the lead on some areas rather than others. But that constant communication, recognizing that those decisions affect both of you. So when you say, like, when you can't come to a decision, who gets a win? There's something about like the win-lose, like it's not really about that.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not really about winning or losing. It's really about how can we
Argue.
go
I
to-
mean, oh no.
how can we walk together? How can we communicate better? How can we come to a decision that we and sometimes if you can't make a decision, it's better to not, if you're really on different pages, it's better to not make the decision at all, to put it off. Because the most important thing in your home, and you have to believe this, is your unity. It is your unity, the unity between the two. Because if that
better
starts
to be
crumble,
wrong together than right alone.
because if that starts to crumble, if your marriage starts to crumble, your kids are going to know it. You're going to know it. It's going to lead to stress in different areas, and things are really going to start to fall apart.
Yeah.
So I think that.
Does that make sense?
It's difficult, you know. Okay, we only have 3 more minutes. Let's see. Okay. Oh goodness, so many great questions. Please pause this nagging question.
I'm so sorry. Never mind, she's back. Did you get that? Okay, there.
She said, somebody said, please pause the nagging question. My wife is putting the kids down.
She
Never
needs to
mind,
hear
she's
this.
back.
And she saw me typing this. Oops.
Okay, yes, wrong together versus being right alone. Okay, very good. I think we need to wrap it up. Yes.
Okay, so we know we're still, I don't know where everyone's going to be in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, a month or two, you know, at least in the US, there's a potential
A
of
few things we're going to ask of you before we go, though.
Yeah,
Okay,
but in that time, we really want to encourage you to invest in each other, to really make time if you're remaining in quarantine, to take time to get away together, if you will, even if it's just your bedroom, even if it's, you know, taking a walk together, because this is essential because we're all under some extra stress. Our kids might be cooped up. You may have the homeschooling and home telecommuting. You may all these extra things. Make sure you're putting the oxygen mask on yourself individually, but also you as a couple, that you're finding times to do that. And even enlist your kids to help you, even if they're young, try to get them to help you in doing this.
and I think too that we're going to do another one of, I'm just going to make this
know.
call right now. I think we're going to do another one of these virtual date nights. This has been super fun for us. We have been like literally looking forward to this all day.
Let us know if you're interested.
So there's a couple ways we would like you to know, for you to give us some feedback. Okay. So first of all, we're going to give you a follow-up email to this. And in that email, we're going to have a really quick survey. All right, there's like a 5-minute survey that will help us to help you. Okay, so help us to really work on making these as good as they can be. Obviously, there's always little technical things, and we're going to, I'm sure, do better on that, which is why I want to do it again, because I know we're going to get those things ironed out very, very easily for sure. But the other way that you can help us is that we are going to also send you a link to our giving page. So our ministry is entirely donor funded. Okay, this is made possible because of some grants. We had some large donors, but really, especially with the market the way it is, and some of our large donors really depend on the market, you know, to be able to give to ministries like us. And our goal is to have hundreds, if not thousands, of small donors to give us a really firm base to continue to build this ministry. That is the best thing that we could do for this ministry, is not even if you can only give $10, that's great. If we had thousands of people who gave us $10 a month, that would give us that firm base, because there's so much that we want to do.
Yeah, we have kind of exciting plans for the future. I mean, some of you have seen this before, but we really think things like this are going to be helpful in quarantine, but also other creative ways that we want to
Yes.
continue to serve, because I feel like couples need this now more than ever. I mean, we have people on here from Japan, from Australia, as well as throughout the United States, across time zones, and probably throughout much of Europe as well, as I'm seeing come up. But our desire is to serve, and with God and money, all things are possible.
That's right.
And the
We have
beauty
stuff
of
to give to them too.
yeah, and one of the things that we want to always do is whenever we have somebody who's able to give us a gift, we want to be able to return that gift. And so we have some books that we think are great, like 5 Love Languages and The Temperaments God Gave Your Kids, and a bunch of other books that we'd love to share with those who are able to make a gift. And again, this isn't a PBS appeal, but this is simply a way to say this has been a challenge for all of us. We've had a number of our listeners, and I want to end too with a prayer, because we've had a lot, maybe some of you who are on right now, but we've had a lot of folks who've contacted us who've lost their jobs, who've been out of work. And some of those were actually supporters of ours, and that's been hard, and we want to continue to pray for them and support them. But you're helping us with a small gift. You're able to allow us to serve others. And
So maybe you're thinking, hey, we can only give $10 a month. Believe me, that's a huge help to us. And we have, books and swag and all kinds of things on our website that we are ready to give to you. The other thing is that on the front page of our website, there's a little button about in the middle that says strengthen your marriage. So if you would like to continue this, first of all, you can please check your email for the download that we created specifically for this talk. So if you download that, do the discussion questions on it, take some time to kind of go deeper into your relationship. But then if you do that and you still want some more, you can click on that strengthen your marriage button, and that will bring you through kind of like a mini course that we've created.
Like 3-week.
Yeah.
And so these questions we've created them specifically based on this evening, and for you to go deeper, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to send that out. You'll probably get it in the next 10 minutes or so.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we'll have also a recording of this. I don't know where we'll.
Yeah, so I know that there's some people, the Facebook Live, I don't know if that worked, I think, but this whole recording, we can go ahead and we can put that up on Facebook too. So if you know somebody who you think that would benefit from this, you can direct them to the Facebook page and we'll have this there.
So, and with that, maybe we'll just close in prayer. Is that
Absolutely.
right? Okay.
Let's do it.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we come before you this night, and we ask for your blessing. As it is the vigil of divine mercy, we ask for your mercy. You gave us the power of your resurrection, the power of your cross, and we ask for a greater outpouring of your mercy on the marriages that are present here right now, Lord. That you would stir in our hearts a deeper love and a deeper unity for the couples that are struggling in their communication right now. That you would help open doors, that you would break through and allow new ways of seeing from their perspective, from the spouse's perspective, and allow us all to grow in greater love and unity. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Again, have
you, guys.
a great night. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Jake and Maria, for the chocolate. If you haven't had your chocolate yet, hopefully you can have a nice dessert and libation. And we will be sending out about 10 minutes that email with, I think you already have the handout, but with that survey and some other links there for you as well. God bless you all and have a great night. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.